I'm good, mate. Yes, we're building his way up to Christmas Day. Obviously, what happened at the weekend wasn't fantastic, was it? But
No.
Just another kick in the gonads, I think. For
it is, because I've not seen you for a while.
Yeah,
I'm used to seeing you on a weekly basis, but obviously this COVID's kicked that into touch, as I say. So how are you doing with the current situation? What you doing with your time?
Well, it is a bit awkward, to be honest. I think that obviously being furloughed for 9 months doesn't help anybody. I think unless you're quite happy to just keep taking the money. I think that I'm very fortunate. I think that I'm working for a club in Hull FC that has been really good to all its staff, and that includes the players and all the coaching staff and obviously foundation staff, everybody else at the club that works at the club. They've really stuck by us, I think, and I'm it just goes to show that I'm a very proud FC supporter, but to work for them as well is been great. So I'm thankful for that. I've been doing a bit of bike riding.
I've seen you flying up and down a couple of roads.
Well, yeah, it is. It's I think that it's one of those things that you can get out. I've got a metal knee, so I've had a knee replacement, so I can't run. But it has got me out, and to be fair, it's probably kept me sane to a certain extent, because I can get out. I can go whatever length I want. Whether it's 6 mile or 26 mile. It's great, and I think I combine that with going to the gym. Obviously, during some of the lockdown, we weren't able to do that. So that it's you do struggle a little bit, and I think that I think during the first lockdown we used to have a quiz, didn't we?
We used to have a quiz. We used to have a quiz every Friday night.
Yeah. So and I think that those sort of things, really help. I think that because I think we have a group of friends that are really close, that we can all just jump on. People really enjoyed that. I think, and I think for everybody, I think it did really well for us. So
I think it's good just to have a separate group who you can discuss things with away from your own household, because like you've said, these are obviously strange times, and it means strange measures. So like I said, it's good to chat. The one consolation, Lee, is that we're not having to prepare for playing over Boxing Day and Christmas period. Geez, that's a effort not to be.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Colin, and it's really interesting. I think when you look at people, our players, I think that oh crikey, how did you? The current players now will say, how did you manage to cope with playing on Boxing Day? Well, it was the normality, wasn't it? Then it was part and parcel of your job, and you were resigned to the fact that we sat down and we had Christmas dinner, but that was it. Then you had a job to do the day after, and it was generally a derby match as much as anything else that you were playing in. So
Lee, the crazy thing was that back in early 80s, late 80s, early 90s, there was a full league programme, wasn't there? You're playing on Boxing Day, and then you've got to back up again and play on New Year's Day. And
I think that it's and sometimes in between as well.
Yeah,
because it was technically, it was probably coming towards the back end of the season, or certainly halfway through it. Starting off in September, and then the beginning of the September, and then obviously, like you said, playing a full league program, Boxing Day, and then obviously New Year's Day.
Hey, I tell you what, Lee, it must have been interesting coming into that Hull side, that 82 season. When did you make your debut?
I made my debut in November. So I signed on in September 1980, and 2 months later, it was, I think it was November the 30th or something like that. We played Salford at the Boulevard, and I made my debut then. And it was a surreal thing for me, to be fair. It was really, obviously as a whole supporter for the biggest part of my teenage years, certainly from 12. I got involved in rugby league, and I started supporting Hull, and for someone that was never thought he were good enough to play professional rugby league, even after playing for England schoolboys a year young, and then playing captain of the year after, I just didn't think I was good enough to play professionally, and that. So to get the opportunity were great, and I think I played 8 games that year.
People tend to forget as well, Lee, because I can remember playing against you in them under-16s when you played at Sydney Smith and I were at Cass High School, and the end of that year, you played in the first team at Hull. Yeah,
it was really strange. The following year, because we got. It's quite ironic, because I was flicking through some Google stuff, trying to come up with some derby matches and that, and try and remember when they were and who played in them. And there was a thing that popped up from the Hull Daily Mail about that I did, which was all about the pressure that I was under when I signed on and all like that. And I read through it, and it was quite ironic, really, because it was just before I started to getting involved with Rugby League Cares and the Head of the Game programme, and on about stresses that I coped with, or didn't cope with, to be fair, that was placed upon me, once I started playing professional rugby, and all sorts of things. I could have handled those scenarios a lot differently. I think certainly when I went to Leeds, it was that period of time was when I spoke in the article. I spoke about there was a time that I would crack, and I didn't know when it was. Well, that was a trigger that really sort of exposed me to quite a few demons. And as you know, having stopped at your mum's for a number of occasions, and
they were the good old days, Lee. But hey, Lee, going back to the early days, and can you remember the early derby games on Boxing Day? Were they always against Rovers?
Generally, I think, yeah. I've been. My memory's crap now, so I've tell you what, I've done a little bit of research. So I come up with we used to play. I think we played Rovers on a Boxing Day, and then obviously on a Good Friday.
Ooh, I bet them Boxing Day games against them were handy.
I didn't come up with I couldn't find any, to be fair, on Google, but I come up with one which was we played. I can remember it now, but when it cropped up, so I think it was December the 28th. It was the 5th round or the 4th round of the Challenge Cup, and we played Rovers, because the Challenge Cup used to be played beginning of January, didn't they?
Yeah.
So, and for whatever reason, anyway, I think this was December the 28th. Now, we played it. It was at Craven Park. Obviously, 1986, the year before, we played Wigan at Wembley.
Yeah.
And it had snowed really heavily, and both sets of supporters got to the ground early and cleared all the snow off the pitch.
I think that game, Lee, was a TV game, because I'm sure I've seen footage of that game.
Yeah, it was on BBC.
The ground being cleared.
Yeah, so obviously it was a Challenge Cup game, and it was against. And unfortunately for us, we got beat, and we got beat quite heavily. And it was a year that OKR played Cass at Wembley.
Yeah,
86.
86.
Yeah. And I can remember little bits of it.
Yeah, because OKR beat Leeds in that semi-final at Ellen Road.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
With that Lydia at Triant Corner, which to this day he was in touch, but you can't take it back.
No,
anyway.
No.
Hey Lee, so when you look at that, how did you prepare then for those Boxing Day games? What were it like on Christmas Day?
Well, it was. I mean, it was quite drab, to be fair. I mean, apart from you get up in the morning and the kids are really excited and you know you unwrap your presents and stuff like that, and then it was even then it was because of the nature of the game and stuff like that. It was you didn't used to have a drink and you didn't gorge yourself at the table. You had your Christmas dinner and all that sort of stuff, and while everybody else was getting blathered.
Hey, it was a nightmare. Hey, Lee, I can remember going. We always go to the in-laws for Christmas dinner, and they had their Christmas dinner late, and forever. I used to go to bed. I used to have a light lunch, go to bed in the afternoon, and then get up and have a little bit of Christmas dinner at about 6 o'clock with them. And it used to be a nightmare because, you know, the in-laws, very sociable. They always used to like a drink. But, you know, as you can imagine, about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Christmas Day afternoon, you're playing the next day. And, you know, it can get a bit rowdy. You think, God, let me go to bed and get out of the way.
It is. It's one of those things. I think you just used to get used to it, to be honest. And I think that, you know, as I said, I think the biggest thing for me was, so once we got Christmas Day out the way, and you know, Boxing Day rose, you know, I got up nice and early. I used to have a pre-match thing that I would religiously did. So, you know, what I had for breakfast, you know, what I did when I went prior to the game, getting into the dressing rooms and stuff like that, which I carried on for quite a long time. So, but the one thing I can remember about all of them is that as soon as you went out and you ran out onto that field, and that sometimes it was snowing, sometimes it wasn't snowing, sometimes it was raining, but it was always cold.
Oh,
And waiting for that first punch on your nose was absolutely horrendous.
Hey Lee, it's funny because I was trying to remember what my first Boxing Day game was, and I can't. To be honest, I can't really remember other than when I think it was, what will it have been, 83 when Wally Lewis were here, and we played Cass at Cass, and Wally had stayed with Brian Briggs in the Boozer, and they'd obviously had a couple of pints the night before, you know what I mean, with the Christmas dinner.
Yeah.
But we played on that Boxing Day. We got beat at Cass, and I mean everybody just knocked Wally all around the park, and it was one of those tough games. We got beat, and then we had to back up and go to Lee on New Year's Day, and we went across there, and Johnny Kendrew, the singing ref, were reffing. So, and it had rained. It had rained for about 3 or 4 days solid. Yeah, it was a mud bath over at Old Hilton Park. And to be fair, the singing ref, Johnny Kendrew, didn't have the best of games, and coming off, and Wally, to this day, I laugh about it. Wally said to Johnny Kendrew, he says, "I hope you can play that guitar and sing better than you can referee, Johnny." And Johnny Kendrew didn't know what to do. He just stopped in his tracks. And to this day, whenever I see him pass our house now, I have a chat with him and have a laugh and a joke. But that's my earliest memory. And obviously then we both went to Leeds, and looking at you know, some of the games we had with Leeds, the Boxing Day games were invariably Cass, weren't they?
Yeah, generally, and to be honest, as I said, I'd have probably the first. Let me think now. So 87. So I went to Leeds in 87. So I played probably that Christmas, going 87, 88.
You definitely played the following year, 80. When did you sign with Cass?
I signed with Cass in 90, didn't I?
Yeah,
so I went.
I've seen some footage of a Boxing Day game against Cass and you played, because I always laugh. Remember when games at Leeds never got called off because of that undersoil eating? And we always, every year, whoever the Aussies were, we used to catch them out. I always remember with Craig Izzard and Tugger, Craig Coleman, walking down that grey slope, that concrete slope from the changing rooms onto the pitch on training Christmas Day morning, and just bending down and touching grass and just saying, yep, that undersoil eating's on. I can feel how warm it is. And sure enough, Tugger and Izzy snake down. Terrible.
That's correct, yeah. I mean, that. To be fair, that one, that was probably I mean, that was a season where I had a bit of I did all right, to be fair. I'd sort of knuckled down and I played well for Leeds, but so that'll be probably the one Boxing Day I think that I may well have pleased a few people, but obviously going forward, I think that then the boot's on the other foot. Then, so when I went to Cass in 90, I didn't play in the Boxing Day game then.
Why was that in your contract that you didn't have to play?
It was. I think it was. I'd sort of signed, but I hadn't signed. If you know what I mean.
Yeah. Is that when you were in?
Well, I walked out, didn't I? Yeah. Well, I walked out on the club. I walked out on Leeds, and Scully said, you need to come back and so there were a lot of
politics. Don't get into
a lot of animosity and a lot of politics within the game. So correct. So, but yeah. So anyway, I went back into training, and then obviously the back end of December, Leeds decided. Well, Cass made an approach, and Leeds decided to sell me. So. I missed the Boxing Day stuff, I think. So
unless there's that year when I were loitering down blindside when you come down and you throw that long pass and I caught it and intercepted.
No, I think that was later on. That was later on. It was because it was at Headingley. I can remember it, and it wasn't freezing cold neither.
Well, I don't know.
You couldn't get that far because you had to give it to Vince Fawcett, didn't you?
No, but I got past halfway. I were out on my feet on the blind side, and you saw me, but you came down, and somehow I stepped up trying to force you back inside, and you just passed it, and it just landed in my hands. So I just went as far as I could. But and like you said, Vince Fawcett, I'd gone down the touchline. Vince came back inside. I gave him it, but Singe and Ellis cleaned me out, and I ended up in fourth row in them old seats down in that lower tier. Anyway, fond memories. But Lee, would you trade places now? Would you trade places with Ben to play Boxing Day and Christmas? Boxing Day, New Year's Day.
Well, I won't now. I think that. I think the game, as much as lots of people ask you, don't they, about, how would you cope, and would good players from the past be able to cope with the rigors of today's game? And I think that the answer to that is yes, they would, because they'd have all the training stuff. So I think that today's game's all about training and being physically and mentally fit. And I think that if you took a Roger Millward out there, or a Steve Norton, or Alex Murphy, or anybody out of that, their time, and put them into the environment that players have now, then they would still be outstanding players, probably better players because of of the nature of how the players train now. You know, I take my hat off to the modern day player. I think that that the amount that they have to sacrifice throughout the year is unbelievable, and I think that, you know, that what they have to do is phenomenal, really, especially this year as well. Just, you know, what they've gone through playing this year, you know, and I think that the one thing I would say is, though, that I think that although I think it's coming back, you know, I think the modern day game is stifled a little bit by a lack of skill set. Not everybody, but I think that you know, the game needs a little bit more flaring to be put back into it. So players need to be able to express themselves a little bit more.
I'll tell you what, though, Lee.
Ability to play, and see what they see.
It's been interesting to see the games played without the scrummaging. Yeah, it's the pace of the game's gone through the roof, and you look at the pressures that are being put on those middles. You know, when
and I think you're right, and I think that the you know, the one thing you can say about, although it's probably not pretty to look at, it gives people a bit of a breather.
Yeah.
And it does slow the game down a little bit, and I think sometimes I wonder, you know, how quick do you want the game to be?
Yeah.
Because there's only so much that certain players can do, and I think that then it becomes, you can turn around and say, well, it creates an opportunity in the middle of the park because forwards are a little bit more tired, and it creates opportunities, and that may then produce better quality players because players can look up and see that, you know, utilize their skill set a little bit more. So there is that, I suppose, but I think that that's always been the case. I think that, you know, we need to, from a games point of view, I think we need to make sure that, you know, we are creating skillful players that have got an ability and got an opportunity to actually look up, and if they think they've got something on, then, you know, let's go for it, and don't be robotic. You know, I think sometimes there's too many robots around. I think that's generally going out of the game to a certain extent now, and I think that, but in the same time, if you've got a player that has got that skill set, then you need to have the players that can anticipate that player's got skill set and then go with him, because, you know, it's all right one person going and attacking the defensive line. If he's got nobody that's read the game with him, then he's just on his own, and he's easy fodder for defenders to tackle. So I think there's, you know, I think the game, as much as you look at the game now, and some of the plays you stand in awe of, you know, I think from generally across the board, I think that, you know, I think that, as I said, I take my hat off to the players because it's a totally different game now, and what they have to do and sacrifice, and that is immense. And I think that, but I do believe that, you know, we need to bring back some of this, not old-fashioned rugby, but allow players the ability to entertain people a little bit more.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting how the start of the season pans out. You know, especially with the current COVID restrictions, and fingers crossed we can get back to some kind of normality, because, you know, the way that the season finished, especially with, you know, the spectacle with St Helens winning that grand final, and the manner with which they won that game, it's just, you know, people want to see more of that kind of game, don't they?
Well, you do, and could you imagine if? I mean, to be fair, could you imagine if there was 60,000 people?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have 60,000 people at Cape Con Stadium, but if that finish had been at Old Trafford and there were 80,000 people in there, and that, how, you know, what an atmosphere!
Yeah.
What a way to snatch a game, and a grand final game. And I think, you know, it goes to show that if we get it right, that we've got a massive product on our hands that we can deliver. Do you know what I mean? I think that that was probably the best game I've watched all season.
It was because of the intensity.
Yes.
I saw a game earlier in the year at Headingley, Wigan. I can't remember who Wigan played, to be honest. And the ball was in play for such a long time. There was no break. The intensity of the game, the pace of the game. But I agree with you that grand final's been the best game I've seen all year.
Yeah, and I think that it's quite funny now that the last game of the season is the best game of the season.
Yeah.
And I think that full credit to Hull as well for putting on a spectacular environment without any people in there.
Yeah.
I think that the event itself was probably as good as it could have been. It was a privilege to watch, to be fair.
Yeah, it was. Enjoyed it. Very enjoyable.
Yeah.
So
I think. Go on then.
No. It's look. I'm just wrapping up now. It's great to catch up, Lee. You know what I mean? And I hope and pray that there's other ex-players and ex-teammates and other people doing the same, just making sure that they're catching up and looking after the mates. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's a great way to just keep everybody fit and healthy mentally. So the stuff that we're doing, is all based around that. We're not both myself and you are mental fitness ambassadors for Rugby League Cares and part of the head of the game team, and we don't go around saying that we're mental fitness professionals or whatever. We're just normal rugby lads that have been through scenarios that normal people are going through. And if I look back at my career, I tell everybody that I didn't know that I was brought up in an era when talking about your emotions was a sign of weakness and that. So and I look back and I think to myself, why did I do that? Why couldn't somebody have talked to me about what I was going through, and I'd have been a lot better player. People say to me, that you was a great player, and I look back and I think, well, I could have been a lot better.
Yeah.
If I hadn't have, done what I'd done, and I think that, one of the great things that I get personally from being part of the head of the game team is talking about where I think I went wrong and how I could have helped. If somebody had have helped me, if I knew then what I knew now, then I'd be a lot better player, I think. But because that's not going to happen, that I've got the opportunity to help somebody else.
Yeah.
And we both know that being able to talk about and the stigma around talking about your emotions even now is still there.
Yeah.
And people just don't want to do it. So the more people we can do, and the more young people we can teach to go up and talk, not be frightened of talking about their emotions. I think that we will help. Will help a lot of people.
I think this year, Lee, more than any year, it's just emphasised the need for people to look after one another, and making sure that it is okay to talk, and like we've said, the head of the game programme and the amount of people that it's going to touch over the next 12 months in the lead up to the World Cup. It's going to make a massive difference, and and it's good to show that just make sure that you look after your mates and make sure that you look after the backs of everybody in your circle of friends. Just help the people that you can help.
That's it, mate. That's all it is. Even if it's just jumping on the Zoom thing. If you haven't got a laptop, then ring them up, talk to them. Don't be frightened of poking your nose in a little bit. I think that we all want to talk, and I think when you start talking, the stigma goes away a little bit, and you can, you know, it's just how you approach that initial conversation.
Yeah.
I
think sometimes, Lee, the conversations will naturally lead that way when you're in this environment. It's, you know, you put yourself in this environment, and people will sometimes open up and discuss some of the subjects that you know, are impacting on them on a daily basis. So
yeah, if I think it's just making people confident and comfortable around your discussions, and if you're obviously if you're mates, it's a little bit more easier because you know you have a bit of a laugh and a joke, and we'll talk, and then you just continue. You know, for me, it's I probably struggle a little bit sometimes with just how to approach, you know, how to approach somebody and saying to them, well, you know, how are you feeling, mate? Yeah, good. You know, how do you get, you know, well, and then looking at your posture and stuff like that. It is difficult at times, but I think that when I think about what I'm doing as I'm doing now and talking, it's quite difficult.
Yeah,
when I'm just in a conversation, and that it becomes it's very much easier.
Yeah,
because I don't know I'm doing it.
I think,
you know
Lee,
what I mean? It's one of them.
especially in the current situation, because you're not seeing your friends and your close friends as regular as you used to. So you don't generally see if there's a problem, okay? And I think this is key, and it, you know, we need to emphasise the need to keep in regular contact with your friends, with your ex-teammates, just to stay in touch, just to give them the opportunity to talk. And, you know, it's not necessarily a forum to talk about your own problems. It just allows you to talk and discuss about anything.
Well, it is, and that's what we're saying. But that's when it comes naturally to you, because you don't even know you're doing it. I think if you jumped on a Zoom call, or you've just met somebody and you went, well, I think there's something wrong with him, and I need to try and get it out of him, and that's when you start to struggle a little bit. I think the most natural thing is to sit down and just talk about stuff, and eventually I think the stuff comes out.
Yeah.
Because you're just talking naturally, and once somebody's comfortable with the environment and the person they're talking to, then, you know, they're quite happy to explain some of the situations that might be causing them some issues. And I think that's certainly how, you know, how I've approached it, and that works for me, because once you find out that somebody's trying to poke the nose in a little bit, you tend to stand back a little bit, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, you do. And sometimes these subjects are very, very personal, obviously, to the individual involved. And sometimes, I wouldn't say it's the stigma that's involved. Sometimes the emotion is a bit raw. And so, you know, they have a tendency to not want to talk about that because of the emotion that's involved in the conversation. But the one good thing that we're doing, Lee, is we're raising the awareness of, you know, the mental health side from Rugby League Cares and the Head of the Game project, which, again, I just want to emphasise to everybody, is going to be rolling out next year, you know, by a number of ex-professionals. It's being led by Keith Senior, Johnny Lawless, Paul Wood, Paul Broadbent, Crooksy, myself, Sean Lunt, Kevin Leroyer, and there's others again involved who are going to lead these programs. So keep your eyes peeled for it, and if there is any issues, or if there is, just jump on the sessions that they're doing. Some of them are going to be web-based and Zoom-based meetings, but hopefully in the new year, and once this COVID situation has slowed down, hopefully there's going to be face-to-face meetings. So, Lee, thanks for your time tonight, mate. It's always good to catch up, and look forward to catching up with you in the future. See you later, pal.
No worries. All the best, mate.
Ta-ra.
Merry Christmas.
And you.